Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmick Voice. This is Season 3, Episode 8. I am here with my co-host, Chris Natalini.
Hello, hello, hello.
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome back to another show. Chris, how are you, my good man? How are you?
I am doing awesome, dude. How about yourself?
I am fantastic with a side of extra salt.
Nice.
Maybe I'm getting a little crispy, too. I don't know. Could be that kind of day. I'm all right. Back on the air here with you. How much better can I be?
I think the same thing every time we do this, brother. The day gets better when I see your smile.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes we just need that little pick-me-up between us. That's all.
Just that little pick-me-up. That's all it is.
You got to be happy, though, man. I mean, you literally are. You're in reach of the Hallmark Channel.
4 months as of today.
Hot,
4 months coming in today.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
When everybody hears this, so we're a little bit. We're ahead. Everybody else is a little bit behind. Right. So yeah, you're right. 4 months. That's right.
4 months today. I can actually see the runway lights from here through the fog. It's saying,
telling you, bro,
the world will be right come December. Well, actually, not the. Already starting on this, people are like, oh my God, here he goes. But the Hallmark stuff is kicking off in October, baby.
There you go, dude. There it is.
They got like another 47,000 new movies to, and you know what? During Christmas in July, they did a whole month. They actually had 3 new movies. 3 brand new movies just for Christmas in July.
What? So did they take place in July or did they just air in July?
No, they aired in July, but they were brand new.
Okay,
it's more like, in that December time frame, yeah.
Okay, so the characters in those movies were in December.
In December, yeah. I mean, listen, if you're going to sink into it, I like the Christmas in July thing, but the sand don't work for me, right? It just doesn't work like that. I get it. I understand it, what we're drawing people in for, but if you're going to immerse yourself, and I'm baking that much cookies, I want to feel like it's Christmas, like for real. You know what I mean?
It's awesome.
So, with that, tonight's topic is artists and demons. We'll be discussing things that can often get the best of artists mentally, spiritually, emotionally, grammatically, physically, and other things. So, artists and demons, a little bit of play on there for, angels and demons, and all that. And I don't know. What's his name? What's that actor's name everybody loves? I don't know his name anymore.
Tom Hanks?
Tom Hanks, there you go.
Okay.
Tom Hanks won't be coming on this episode. However, you can pretend like he is, if you like.
I got you.
Okay, we just have Mick and Chris here tonight, so
yeah,
that's about all we can afford.
I wish we did have a little Tom Hanks.
That'd be great. Our ratings would go out the roof.
So, that is for sure.
So again, we're discussing artists and demons, discussing things that can get the best of an artist. Go ahead, buddy. What do you think? What gets the best of you?
Wow. Man, I think the one thing that gets the best of me is sometimes it could be the lack of sleep. As I get older, I realize that, sleep affects me more than I remember it to. And obviously when I was younger, it was different, but, I could go on and I could still go on 4 or 5 hours, but performing and traveling, that takes a lot out of you. And, everybody knows, when you're tired and you lack of sleep, you get a little, salty, as we say here on the East Coast. So especially for my voice too, and I can't speak for any other musician, drummers, guitar players, bass players, keyboardists, whatever that instrument is that you play. But as a singer, sleep is super important. So if my sleep is off, it really affects me physically and emotionally. Maybe things that I don't sleep well, maybe things that shouldn't or maybe wouldn't bother me normally is, maybe grates on my nerves a little bit. Grumpy, as my mom used to say. So, that's a hard part of traveling. I think we talked about it in a very, very early one of our podcasts. I try to catnap when I can, even if it's for 10, 15 minutes, even if it's just going out to the car and just catch a few winks just to get your mind straight. So sleep is definitely one thing. Eating is another. if you don't eat properly or if you eat like crap, it affects you emotionally and of course physically. And, and to me too, and especially to you also, Mick, like the kind of music that we both do, it's very hard. It's very trying performance wise. So, when I'm done performing, I know, the next day I'm going to feel, wore out. Right, because, I put a lot into performing. So, and if I don't eat right, and then if I'm not, if I don't have enough sleep, that affects everything, man. It really, really, truly does. I'll throw this out there. Perfect example. When we were shooting our second video, which by the time everybody hears this, it will be out. We were in a very rundown, abandoned church. I had been out late the night before. I had gone to see some friends play. I was a little on the tired side, and it was, 100 degrees out. So inside this rundown church, I can't even tell you, it was so hot because there was no airflow, and we had a generator going. And when I did my parts, God, I probably did it 6 or 7 times, and throwing everything I had into that performance. When I was done my time of shooting, I was physically and emotionally exhausted. I was done. I was fried. I was hot. I was I didn't eat properly. Yeah, I drank a lot, but I didn't eat properly. I didn't have enough sleep. So by the time the shoot was done, which is, an easy 10 hours, I was fried. Like I was ready I probably could have slept in my car, in the location that we were. So I think that those kind of things, eating and sleeping and drinking properly and getting proper rest, I think is a huge thing to conquer those demons, as we say, when you're touring or traveling or even performing, even if you're performing local. I do know some guys that are on the road and make a living at what they're, being on the road, and it's hard. Their lack of sleep, and they're also catnapping when they can. They play, then they drive all night, and then, they try to get to the gig the next day. And as you know, Mick, you've been one to drive many, many hours after a show to get to the next one. And, you just catnap when you can. So I think, like I had said, to reiterate, I think eating and drinking and sleeping are 3 of the most important things for your own health and body, and your mental state is something definitely important when you're doing what we're doing.
Oh, yeah. The thing is it's not a normal time frame or time schedule when you tour, whether you tour short bursts or you tour, long-term type of thing. It's not a normal time frame of scheduling as you would in your everyday life. So if you're working a regular job, you get used to one thing, and then all of a sudden the next day you begin this tour, and there's the nightlife, and your body hasn't quite adjusted to it. So the first day or 2 may not be a bad thing, but it starts creeping up on you. And of course, the older you are, it's it goes without saying, it does play. And we've talked about this on the air. I've talked about it. Like anytime that I'm on the road, I never sleep right. My sleep is cut down to, a couple hours here and there. I do a lot of the driving when possible, unless we're overseas, then I don't do any of that stuff. And I'm not one to I don't nap. I never nap. But we try to set up that decompression time right before the show, whether it's an hour or a half, whatever it is. Well, it's something that we can we each do our own form of meditation, whatever that would be. Whether some people sleep, so that's a horizontal meditation where you're out in another world, another plane, and then others just kind of reflect or maybe read or just kind of just zone out just enough so you're disconnected with everything else around you. Just kind of, it's like like you said, there's a recharging. Food's definitely an important thing. Again, if you're on the road, you're eating more often because if you're snacking all the time, because there's not much else to do and sit in the car, or you're eating at very odd times, like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. I've been on the LA Strip and I'm eating at Jack in the Box at 2:30 in the morning. Full sandwich, fries, whatever, because you're not going to get a nice, hot meal type of thing. So you're eating at different times. You're probably eating different food. You can carry some food with you, but it's not like you can carry a whole cooler around all the time. Where you have the stuff that you need.
And I hate to interrupt, but I need our listeners to understand that you eating, burgers and fries and a soda in the middle of the night is definitely not something you do.
It's not something I do normally, no.
Because you are a health conscious eater. I know you are.
I mean, listen, I don't shy away from meat, right? I'm not a vegetarian or anything like that, but my meat consumption is a lot lower than, say, it was 30 years ago for a lot of different reasons. But, listen, when you're hungry at that point, because I know what you're talking about. Like, when you're saying about the video shoot, you're doing this and you're kind of running on adrenaline. And then when it's like all of a sudden it's over and it's kind of like the plug is pulled, you just kind of like, everything just kind of drops. And I remember when we went to Europe and we were up for just about 2.5 days. It just didn't, maybe a little sleeping on the plane, but if you've ever slept on a plane or tried to, it's not, you might as well not even sleep. It's, what I mean? It's just, it makes your worst feeling than trying to, as your head keeps hitting the front and the back and this and that, anyway. So, but I mean, we had to drive, we flew in and we had to drive for practically a day to a show, played the show, it got late, we had to do an interview afterwards, which, with the setup and all that kind of stuff, as it was being aired, took like an hour or so. By that time, we were all space cadets. You could, you could just tell, because lack of sleep, airplane, and airport food, and again, as your stomach starts to get whatever. So I get that. It's very important. That's one of those things that I think that as you age in this business, you got to get a handle on, because you can't eat the same way as you did when you were 20 when you're 50. It's just your body doesn't process it. There's nothing you can do about that. Like, no matter what you do, you can't say, well, I'm going to eat that anyway. Well, you'll eat that, and then you're tortured later. And we talked about that. You don't want to do anything that's going to disrupt you and the show, right? Because, when you're on tour, everything revolves around the show. Now, I mean, this isn't specifically about being on tour, but we're using it as an example. But at the same time, if you're going into the studio, you can't do things prior to that are going to affect the outcome. Because remember, you're paying for it, or somebody's paying for it.
Right.
And you want your best performance. And if you have some intestinal issues, or and you have to race back and forth to the restrooms, or or you didn't sleep very well, or you were heavily intoxicated the night before, that's going to affect your overall performance. And we talked about this. You can enjoy this very much so, but at the same time, there is a certain level of, hey, this is, if you're taking it this far, if it's a weekend warrior thing, hey, listen, more power to you. That's the way you do it. Fantastic. But if you're recording and releasing, and you have distribution, you're touring for more than 4 or 5 days at a time, and you're not just playing your local bar, well, then there's a level of it being a job, right? Or a responsibility and an obligation, so to speak. Because some people go, well, if I'm not getting paid, it's not a job. Okay, I understand. Right. But you're getting paid with fans buying merch, fans saying, hey, you're doing a great job, with likes. There's different ways of approaching that. But you want to take care of yourself the best that you can, so that you can give the best in return, right? I mean, wouldn't you say so? Would you agree?
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%. Yes.
Because,
yes.
I mean, yes, many of us, we do this for ourselves, for the sake of, like, this is part of our lifeline. This is a passion. This is an extension of ourselves. For some of us, what we do is how we keep balance in life, right? Because there's this creative aspect to it. So we need to respect that. And we need to be aware enough that say, well, listen, I need to get a little bit more sleep here. Or, you know what, I better eat now so that I'm okay later. And then those choices that you make. Or maybe I'm not going to drink right now. You know what I mean? Or for whatever the case may be. So, they're all good things for sure. And I think that early on, I mean, myself included, you just kind of took for granted. It wasn't that big of a deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're running on this excitement and stuff like that, but it catches up to you. And if you're doing it for the long haul, you want that longevity. I think the sustenance of life, you know what I mean, is something that we need to maintain. Good sleeping habits, good eating habits, keeping yourself hydrated. Stuff like that. Stuff like that for the human mechanics, you should say, right? To keep that going.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, eating is eating and drinking and rest is one of the easiest things to do, and many of us find it very difficult, whether it's to fit in time, or you're just busy doing other things, or you're stressed out or worried, or three of those things are so easy, and they're the hardest.
Yeah, I mean, well, again, like, so touching upon, like, being stressed out. Now, a lot of people go, why would an artist, guy playing guitar, playing drums or whatever, like, be stressed out? Like, I mean, it's not like they're digging ditches, carrying boxes, curing cancer, whatever the case may be. Yes, but at the same time, again, like we talked about, there's a responsibility, there's an obligation. It's a job just like something else, right? And if you're passionate about it, you want to give it your all, right? And sometimes, the human nature gets sometimes the best of us. And like you said, you could be tired, irritable, you could be sick, but you still have to do this. And that could be taxing. That can wear on you. It can create stress. If you got a lot of gigs lined up, big gigs, you throwing in some new tunes, you have this, you have that. A lot, depending on what you're doing in the band, I mean, it could cause a lot of stress. There could be stress between the bands. Like between the members, you know what I mean? And they can work together. Listen, how many people have a job where there are people on the job with you that you don't necessarily like? And that causes some level of stress. So it's like, oh man, what are they going to say today? I got to really deal with this today. That kind of stuff. Right. Well, that may not be among band members, but it could be at venues. It could be at different booking agents or producers or all sorts of things. I mean, sometimes you just have not that they're fans, but you have people that are just going to kind of heckle you or give you a hard time or, whatever the case may be. That's again, human nature. So stress levels always go up, and you have to figure out a way. And for some people handle stress all right. Right? Some people can shake it off. Some people, they put that stress back into the creative process. Maybe there are shows a little bit more aggressive. Not that they're going around punching people out and breaking stuff on the stage and all, but their playing is a little bit more. It's got some sauce to it, right? And sometimes that provides the audience with a little bit more of an intensive performance, right? Delivery. Yeah. And the artist can feel that. And then there's this, and that's a positive. I mean, I've seen artists kind of lose it on stage and take it out on the audience. And that's right. And you don't know what's building up prior to that. That's what I mean. Right. So sometimes we got to take that in consideration as the artist. We have to be aware enough to say, hey, man, this is not going to turn out well, or I should do it this way, or I should be, maybe I don't need to get involved in this part of the business because I get too riled up, right? I'm too, tighter than a Dixie hat band type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, and again, we'll use the analogy that if you're on the road, you have to find ways to kind of deal with that demon or those demons, right? And drinking isn't necessarily the best solution, in my opinion, because I've seen guys handle their demons with drinking and substance abuse. It never goes well. I mean, maybe early on, the life of the party type thing. He's a fun guy to be around and all. But there's always that point where the fun guy turns into the F guy. And it's a matter of a simple door swing. And, we've seen it time and time again, especially with the bigger names, that those demons catch up to you. And some guys don't last. They check out a lot earlier than they should. And I think that just as regular people, we need to avoid that, right? I mean, especially if we have this gift and we have this drive and this passion, part of that we take the responsibility to hone it, to care for it, to get better at it, right? To improve it, to make it the best we possibly can. Like you said, it's easy to eat and maybe get a little extra sleep here and there, drink, keep yourself hydrated. But there are three things that we'll overlook because we won't take the time, or I'll just grab, a handful of cheese fries. That'll carry me over, and all that kind of stuff. But it's the same thing. Like if we hone all this with our craft, why don't we take a little bit more time for ourselves? And it's really not that much that we have to do. It's just an awareness. And then sometimes maybe just taking a step back, giving ourselves enough space so we don't get to that point. And I think a lot of us, we miss that. We're not honed in enough. Like our self-awareness kind of goes out the door. And again, I'm speaking from some personal experience because for a lot of years I dealt with tons of anger building up from a lot of things, personal reasons, professional reasons, things like that. And we talked about this on air that, I've burnt bridges and destroyed foundations and, always came in swinging when I shouldn't have. and all that kind of stuff, and in my younger days, and even in some of my older days. But I am learning, and I've got a lot of the anger under control now. Thank God that I never had a substance or a drinking problem of any sorts. I just dealt with it in other ways, and I learned other positive outlets like working out and keeping a focus on those times when, hey, that button's going to be pushed, whether I'm going to accidentally push it or, somebody else is going to push it, whether they push it purposely or involuntarily. They don't know you enough, and they're like my bass player says, he uses the term poking the bear a lot. Now I like poking the bear with him pretty much to get him riled up, and we do that to one another. But we've also been friends and
it's easy when you guys have been together for so long. So we can but and then it also makes it worse that we've been getting it for so long, because we know exactly where to go. You know exactly.
Yeah, and we can cut down that build up time to seconds.
This is Stephen Piercy from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmic Voice.
But I think an attention to ourselves, the individual, and I don't think that's a selfish thing. Because you don't want to, and we talked about this before, you don't want to end up a statistic. Ever.
No.
You know what I mean? And I know, even in today's society, people will go, well, yeah, the days of, Jim Morrison and Janis Joplin and stuff, people are more aware of that. Well, are they really? Let's go through some, in the recent years of, some artists that, you know what I mean? If they did not take their own life in one way, they took it in another way. It may have been a longer.
Yeah.
And look how many artists have talked about, like Ozzy. You know what I mean? Like they've survived so many run-ins. Nikki Sixx, right? He wrote it in his autobiography. I mean, there's a guy who's, I think, pronounced dead, what, twice?
Twice,
yeah. You know what I mean? He went back a second time. He figured the first time I didn't do it well enough. I understand that. I mean, but in modern, Kurt Cobain, and it's there. Right?
Yeah.
Now, that's the artist's responsibility? I'd say for sure. But I mean, is it our responsibility as a community, right? As just other human beings to be aware of this, the people around him. I mean, there was always talk about a lot of guys, they're called enablers, right? And when you reach a certain level of success, you have tons of them, apparently. I mean, Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, things like that. But then at the same time, the agenda is, hey, we got to keep these guys just tuned up for the show. Tuned up for the show. Right?
Tuned up for the show,
Yeah, kind of like what the whole, Pink Floyd The Wall's about. They just kept him, they just kept pumping away to keep the guy going, and he was losing himself in the process. And that's where I think if we're going to be modern day artists, we need to take a responsibility for that and look back in the past and go, look, we can't repeat this. We need to have things in check, right? And we need to have checkpoints along the way as a community of artists so that avoids. Now listen, the human condition is going to say that no matter what, there's going to be a percentage of that. There's nothing you can do about it. There's almost nothing you can do about it, because it's happening in secret, because a lot of it is, right? A lot of it is. But I think that if we can come up with ways for ourselves early on, and again, this is especially, I mean, anybody can make a change at any point in time if they decide to do it, right? You carve out whatever it is, your destiny, you can change whatever it is that you want to change if you want to make that change. If you really want to do something, you'd make the time to do it. Because we all do it. We all do it. We make time for the things that we want, we really desire. Doesn't necessarily mean that we need them, but if we start making time for the things that we really need in our lives, I think not only will we be healthier people in general, but I think we'd be stronger artists, and we could put a stop to, especially, within recent years, we've been hearing that there's nothing good coming out from any artist, right? It's just a lot of the same, repeat, and it's a recycling. And it's not even that good of a recycling.
Yeah.
It's like worse carbon copies, right? So if that's the case, if we work on ourselves, maybe things will get better all around. I don't know. What do you think?
Man, I agree. We all are in touch with our own being, right? We all know how we feel. We all know how we all know our mistakes. We all know the way we react to things. You know, you just have to kind of look at yourself and realize that you're doing it. So
Right.
I think that, you know, when you get in those moments, you can fix those moments before they happen. You know, you can just try to figure something out, you know, whether it comes down to eating or sleeping or drinking, or not necessarily drinking alcohol, but, you know, just getting enough water in your, you know, in your day to day. And also too, we were talking about things that you deal with. And, you know, the other thing is loneliness, sometimes isolation. There's always been that thing of, you know, Paul Stanley and even Nikki Sixx, speaking of Nikki Sixx, you know, that he was going through the same thing, that these guys are making millions or touring the world, and they are at their complete loneliest, you know, and it may sound odd to people like us, but, you know,
it's real. I mean, listen.
Thank you. Yes, it is. It's real.
You know, you've toured overseas. I've been over there.
Yes.
And when we were in Europe, though, again, everything revolved around the show, and there was, you know, there was the four of us. There was a lot of, you know, we were separated from our families, which is always a thing. It doesn't hit you right away, but then you'll go, you know, wow, this is kind of, you know, whatever. Then there's a language barrier, and you get to the show. You do what you have to do, and then they leave you alone. A lot of times they'll just leave you alone, and you're just kind of sitting there, because you don't know where to go. You can't go too far anyway, and there is an isolation. Again, if you've been on the road, there's an isolation. And then this may be odd to people, but if you're traveling, even here in the States, if you're traveling for days to get to the show or shows, and you're spending most of your time in the car, that's why these guys, they become the best of friends and the worst of friends.
Yes.
Because they are, I mean, like if you read about, or, you know, seen things about the Beatles in those early years, like that first, like 3-4 years, they were only with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, they could not get out because they would be mobbed and, you know, torn up. And, you know, so it was them all the time, 24/7. I mean, you know, even when they brought in chickadees and stuff, it was like, you know, that's just kind of the way it worked. You know what I mean? You know, everybody's sharing bunk beds and whatever the case may be. But I mean, even, you know, bringing up Kiss, they talked about it. You know, they did that drive in the station wagon. It was them all the time. So there becomes this isolation. So whether you're touring a lot or a little, or, you know, you're big or small, it doesn't matter. I think it happens to all of us. We all experience it. I mean, you know, I remember my first tour, and, you know, being away from my family, and it was taxing. Like and emotionally, I didn't put it all together till I got home, and then I seen them. I'm like, oh my God. And, you know, you don't, you know, because again, and I know I sound like a broken record, but when you're doing that and you're on the road, everything you do revolves around the show, whatever, and, you know, and it's the next show, and it's the next. So, you know, when we say the show, we pretty much mean the entire tour, whatever it is, focuses around that. Like, there's no other real thinking. You can think some things and jot some things down, but that's what takes your full attention. So, so because, you know, a lot of artists are taught, you know, when you work in that creative side of the brain, you're a little bit more susceptible to certain levels of emotion. Maybe you're more, you know, they would say you're sensitive. You know, Mick, he's sensitive. So,
he's a sensitive guy.
He's a sensitive guy. So just give him a Snickers bar and leave him alone. You know, that kind of thing. You know, and so like you said, there's that loneliness, there's that isolation, or that a point of like, well, I don't fit in, right? Because a lot of the artists, like especially, let's just use metal, or even Lady Gaga, and, you know, they all talked about that they were more of the outcasts, the strange birds, you know, growing up and that type of thing. So that isolation probably starts early on, and it's probably amplified. You know, when you're in another country, nobody can speak very well to you, and you can't speak very well to them in the process. So, you know, nowadays you can at least go to your phone, right? You see a lot of that. But think about it, like, you know, go back 40 years when they didn't have the phone. You were trapped in a hotel watching bad TV. Because I know we were in some places in Germany. We're watching, you know, now we enjoyed it, but we're watching television programs we couldn't understand. Though we watched, you know, a whole run of Columbo in German, and it was still enjoyable. It was just great, And because of that, then like a level of maybe depression kind of sets in, especially if you're doing it a lot. You know what I mean? And so think about it, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, what they do is they go to maybe the local pub, the downstairs bar, they drink a little bit, and they drink a little bit more, and maybe they get involved in something they shouldn't. I mean, so can it happen today? Yeah. I mean, I've seen guys, as soon as that sound check's done, they're putting them away. So by the time they come on to do the show, which could still be 4 or 5 hours away, they're already obliterated. Yep. So maybe that's enough to to get them through. I don't know, but again, it's not sustainable, right? And that's, I think you were saying that a little earlier. It just isn't sustainable, and everything starts falling apart. Everything.
Yes.
Everything.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You are listening to The Cosmic Voice with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
So we got to be aware of that level of depression. And, you're talking about just in recent years, last 3-4 years, you have Chester Bennington, right?
Yep.
And you'd have some people say, hey, he seemed like he was always upbeat. And then you have these other people say, well, no, he wasn't. Right. So he was hiding maybe some of his demons, and I know there's some controversy around his passing and all that. I'm not here to debate one way or the other, but we're just discussing it here in context with the show, with the title of the show. You got Chris Cornell, same thing. People were like, well, he seemed like this, and then other people say, well, he seemed like that. But there's that, a lot of people are living in this personal isolation that they may not be aware of. They may not even be aware of it themselves. I think when you're that deep into it, you are as the artist possibly aware of it, and you've learned to cope with it, and you become like like they have functioning drug addicts or functioning alcoholics. You're just at that point where you can still get things done, but the deterioration is starting to really steamroller your situation, your relationships, your employment, so on and so forth. So this is a deep topic, and I know we started kind of like at the top end, some basic stuff, and now we're someplace else. But as artists, I think it's very important that you become aware of it. I think as people, it's very important you become aware of it. And with the effects of the last year and a half with COVID and the lockdowns, the pandemic, the fears, the riots, the political upheaval, so on and so forth, I think it's put a lot of people on edge. And if you look at some of the statistics, depression is up, anxiety is up, and it's up in younger people than before. There's a cloudiness because you don't have the answers. And this is why I think as a society, it's more important that we come together to save ourselves as a race, as a community, as a people, as a person, as an individual, because that's where it starts. And I use this analogy all the time, and I know it sounds like really like there he goes again, but they tell you that if the plane's going down, put your mask on first, so then you can save the next person, right? So on and so forth. So what are they telling you? Listen, the pilot may not save you, but you got to take responsibility. Put the mask on first, and then you can take the next step. Right. Yep. So at least you're giving yourself a fighting chance. It doesn't mean you're going to survive, but at the same time, it's the same thing. If we fix ourselves, it's like the ripple effect. Like you cast a pebble into a pond, it creates ripples, and it keeps coming out and growing. So if I can start with me, and then I can help somebody else. And how many artists have done that? We talked about it before. Alice Cooper's been one of the guys. Once he got himself back on track, part of his mission is to not only bring you shock rock and roll, heavy metal, whatever you want to call it, until he's dead. But he's made it his mission to help other artists, young and old, to live better lives. You know what I mean? And if you catch some of his YouTube stuff that he does interviews with this Christian interviewer guy, I can't think of his name, but he's got a mission that this is important to him. I mean, he wants to bring some spirituality and faith into these people's lives to say, hey, listen, you're worth more than that. And he was writing about that in the 80s, hey, stupid, you know what I mean, things like that. So it's not like all of a sudden this is something brand new. This is something he's been doing since he cleaned himself up 35, 40 years ago, whatever. Because, you know, you talk about another guy on the brink of, you know, kind of losing it all. And, you know, so it's a key thing. It's an important thing, I think. I mean, it's just for the betterment of humanity. Why not, right? The individual is important. Because without the individual, you don't have a community. Without a community, you don't have a world. At least that's the way the busboy at my local diner explained it to me.
I think too, you know, we were talking about living for the show or, you know, working for the show. And I think it's a lot of artists' issues. And I know for myself that 40 minutes, that 35, that 40, that hour that I'm on stage is the best. Now, don't get me wrong. My life is completely blessed and I don't complain about anything, but in reality, you know, there are normal things that happen to us on an everyday basis, jobs, families, people passing away as we get older, blah, blah, yada, yada, yada. You know, that time on stage, man, there is nothing better. There is just nothing wrong. You're just in your own head and life could not be any better. And then you walk off stage and blam, you are hit with that reality. You know, that energy, that endorphins, you know, that you may be up after the show for the next hour or so, but man, when you're coming down, that come down is hard. It's hard.
Yeah, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. It hits you on all levels. Absolutely. I hear you what you're saying.
Yeah, so I'm always very aware of how I'm feeling after a show and going into the next day. You know, I definitely have those, and I've always had them. It's something I've always dealt with is those after show blues, because, you know, you're concentrating on the next show happens and boom, it's over. And then you're like, all right, well, now I got to look for the next show. You know what I mean? Right. So there's, you know, your emotions are always up and down, and especially you're at the height when you're on stage, and there's nothing better than that feeling on stage. At least for me, I can't speak for everybody.
Yeah, no, well, absolutely. There's plenty of documentation of artists who they got addicted to that high of being on stage, and what do you do when the lights are off? When the stage is, you know, and a lot of guys have had that problem. Like, you know, when the star dims, right? Like you're on top and then all of a sudden you're not. And, you know, we've lost a lot of guys, you know, over the past 25 years because they couldn't handle going back to civilian life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some guys made it at such a young age and had stellar levels of success. And then all of a sudden, like the rug being pulled out, and they never grasped back. They were still holding. They did all they can, and they kept spiraling out, you know. And there's a lot of guys that were like that. I mean, like, their stories, you know. And I don't want to start throwing names out because people go, well, no, that's not right, or that's not what happened, or listen, there's an unhappiness that happens, and then decisions that are made from there. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's sad. And again, speaking strictly into the music world, we've lost so much great talent because of that. Over the years, when there was guys that were plucked out at their prime, they just had to hold on just a little longer, or you know, have something, or you know, I had mentioned to you before, you know, Jack Russell's thing is I'm just working towards that one more song that's going to change everything. One more song. So it's not just one more show for him; it's one more song, and he may have already done that song. Now he's looking for the next song, right? But that's a positive, creative outlet, and I'm not saying that he's the golden child and the example of this, because people. You know, there's a 50-50 split on people's feelings for him, too, and I understand that. I'm not here to judge one way or the other of people's things or whatever. I'm giving this as an example. So I think that stating that there's nothing greater for an artist than being on stage, sharing that music with an audience who is receptive, and the energy is kind of flowing back and forth, right? We've both been there. It's amazing. You can't even explain it unless you...
Nope.
Right. It's just... And it's a feeling. And then at the end, when it's over, it's like, what's happening to me? Like, where's I need more of it, you know? And it's kind of, and I've had that at the end of a tour. It's like the blues. Like, all of a sudden, you're like, wait a minute, what? Are you tell me in that time I didn't hire anybody to start picking up the cat litter once I got home, and I'm back to doing this? But my point is that's also a call to action and awareness for us to not put all our ducks in one row, not throw everything in the one hat. Like you've said, you're very blessed in life. It's fantastic. I've been very blessed in life. Like, my family is my key. Without my family, I would not be able to do what I'm doing, all this.
Right.
The love and support and knowing that they're there, I don't think I could do it. That's just me, okay? Could I have done it? Yeah, maybe. Just I don't think at the levels that I would have even considered. But my point is you have to have some other outlets. You cannot have it all. You can be the greatest musician. You could songwrite, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I think we all need a little distraction, a little diversion once in a while. Whether it's you like to work out, whether it's you do archery, you do gardening and planning, or you go build stuff. Anything positive, I think, is, you like to play video games, you're into anime, maybe you got a porn fetish. I don't know. As long as you're not hurting anybody, it doesn't make a difference. But you got to give yourself,
makes you happy.
Yeah, you got to give yourself something else, because if you don't, those demons, whatever they are, they're going to come creeping in. They're going to knock. They're going to go, hello. Okay, and they're not the listen. Everybody likes Halloween. I like getting the candy. I get scary ghosts, but I don't want them demons creeping up on my shoulder. All right, you can have them. I don't want them.
Yep, I hear you, 100%.
You know what I'm saying? But that's just me, man. Take care of you. Put the mask on first. I got the mask on, Chris. I can help you get yours on. I may have to trim that beard, but I'm going to get it on. I can't make any guarantee that the mask will work with that beard, but you know what I mean? You got anything else you want to add?
Not at all, sir. I think we pretty much hit it all.
All right, I think we beat some people over the head with something. If you like that episode, check out some of our other episodes. We got a lot going on. You can check everything out at www.thecosmickvoice.com. You'll never know what you'll find until you step into the Cosmickverse. Thanks so much for listening. This is the Cosmick Voice. Be sure to check us out at thecosmickvoice.com. Like and follow us on Facebook at The Cosmick Voice. You can find The Cosmick Voice everywhere you listen to online podcasts, like Deezer, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, and so many more.
Okay, folks, that will do it for another episode of The Cosmick Voice. Mick and I would like to say thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
You're listening to The Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.